For a lot of people new to gardening, the prospects of it all can be daunting. I get that. And it's not because of the amount of work that's involved. I think most of us are up for that challenge. No, the issue has more to do with where to start. Where and how do I even begin? How do we get from A to B? And is it different for every crop? Even if you've never grown anything in your entire life and you're just getting into this now, you're gonna quickly realize that there's only two broad methods which we can plant our veggie crops. Either direct seeding or transplanting pre-started plants. Two very different methods, clearly, but which one is right for you? Well, the short answer is both. How you plant your crops is a direct correlation between where you live in the world, i.e. your climate, and what exactly you're planting. So, confused yet? To make it easy, I'll give you 3 advantages for each planting method to show you why one method is preferred over the other in certain situations. You can then infer from that list, based on your situation, how to plant any crop you want. There's a lot to learn about, so let's get to it. Let's start our discussion on the direct seeding method of growing vegetables. On the surface, this is probably a way of growing that probably everybody on the planet is at least somewhat familiar with. Ironically though, it's actually the more advanced way to grow. Think about it. You are literally growing the plant its entire life cycle, seed to harvest. Conditions have to be perfect for the plant's entire life, even as the seasons change, even as the plants themselves change. However, before I scare you off direct seeding entirely, let's go over its advantages and where you choose it as a preferred method of growing. Direct seeding's first advantage has to be quantity. There are certain crops, logistically, that simply have to be direct seeded. Crops where an infinite number of seeds are sown due to the plant's growth habit. Veggies that come to mind would be things like carrots, beets, spinach, and some herbs. There's no way that anyone is transplanting hundreds of tiny pre-started carrots into their gardens. It just wouldn't be cost effective, and it's just not how they're grown. Advantage, direct seeding. The second reason you may want to choose direct seeding over transplants would be the plant's susceptibility to transplant shock. That is, certain plants simply do not like to be moved around once they've sprouted. Plants such as melons, radishes, and most legumes. They much prefer to start and finish their life cycle in the same place. Trying to pre-sprout and pre-grow these guys early and then transplant them later into the garden can often have poor results. The last advantage that I'll discuss here for direct seeding would be cost. Generally, seeds are quite cheap. They store well, very easy to transport, and for pennies on the dollar, you can afford an unlimited variety of plants and crops compared to spending the same amount on starter plants. Great stuff, but you know what? I'll even throw in a bonus advantage for direct seeding: cooler weather. Some crops, such as lettuces, spinach, peas, and beans, sprout great in the cooler days of early spring. And this is noteworthy because that neutralizes one of the other planting method's main advantages, which we'll get into. And so, speaking of starter plants, let's focus on their benefits. Like we mentioned, some plants are more adept at growing in cooler weather than others, which is great for them. But for a lot of our favorite garden staples, they require a significant window of time, often months, of warm weather to fully grow, fruit, and produce. Crops such as our tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, eggplants, zucchini, etc. For these plants to grow a viable crop, they need access of 5 or more months of summer conditions. And if you live in a cooler area like I do, summer just isn't long enough to give these plants enough time to produce properly. They need a head start. They need to start their life early, indoors, so that when they're finally ready to be planted in your garden, they're already 2 to 3 months old. Another benefit of starting your garden from transplants is time. If you have a crop that is a great transplanter, having it grow and start somewhere else does more than give you a head start for that crop. It also allows you to use that intended space for another crop while you wait. This is the ultimate in garden double dipping. Just because you can plant your tomato seeds in a given garden bed doesn't mean that you should. Why not first grow a quick crop of peas or carrots or both while the tomatoes are doing their thing, getting established indoors? Space is finite, and so is time. So multitasking your gardening like this and likely doubling your productivity is next level. The final reason that I'd pick growing my garden from starter plants is quality. As we said before, seeds are relatively cheap, but land and space and time aren't. In any given garden, you're only given a certain amount of these limiting factors, and you just can't grow everything. So you want to maximize what you do grow. By cherry picking and selecting the best plants that make it into your garden, you are quite practically ensuring its success. You are guaranteeing that what does eventually get planted is the best representation of that vegetable. And in the bigger picture, that'll not only save you space and time, but actually even money as well. As you can see, there are instances of where growing from either direct seed or from transplant is actually a necessity. And then there's other situations where it's merely a preference. Either way, you do have a choice to make when you're planting any given crop. And hopefully what we talked about here today gives you the tools to make the best decision on which way to grow. Just know that any mistake you make in your garden isn't the end of the world. Treat it as a learning experience. You will quickly discover that you often level up more from your missteps than you do from the easy wins. I know for many of you, this whole garden thing can be daunting and a little bit much sometimes. Just understand that it's a process. Once you successfully grow a crop once, that is a skill that you've learned for a lifetime. So, whichever way you grow, just get out there and plant something and enjoy the satisfaction of becoming a little more self-sufficient. Hey, if you have any more tips or strategies on how you start your spring gardens, share it with the community down below. Also, if any of you are on Facebook, head on over and join our gardening group called Growing Better. The group has grown phenomenally fast, yet it will never lose its sense of community or its welcoming feel. If you're passionate about growing epic organic fruits, herbs, and veggies for you and your family, the Growing Better group is a great place to hang out, share, learn, and grow. Hey, thanks for watching, guys. If you're getting value in this and the other series that I'm doing on YouTube, hit those like, share, and subscribe buttons if you'd be so kind, and I'll see you in the next video.